There was a point in my life where I got uncomfortably close to losing everything, and I didn't even fully register it as a problem. Not at first. It was happening slowly, quietly, in a way that felt almost normal. I was draining my savings, pulling money out of my 401k that was supposed to represent stability, and still living like nothing had changed. And the part that stayed with me wasn't just the financial loss, it was realizing how disconnected I had become from what money and life actually meant. From the outside, it didn't look like failure. I wasn't on the street. I wasn't asking for help. I looked like someone who was just in between things. But internally, everything was off. I had just been let go the same day I was supposed to start manager training, and instead of processing it, I just kept moving. Interview after interview, being told I was overqualified while somehow not being enough. And somewhere in that space, I stopped trusting my own sense of direction. I lived on unemployment for almost 2 years. I went back to school, tried to reset, tried to figure out what my next move was supposed to be, but the truth is, I wasn't grounded. I had spent 7 years inside a financial institution, surrounded by money every day, numbers that didn't feel real anymore. Large amounts, constant movement, transactions that made everything feel abstract. And without realizing it, I became completely desensitized to money. So when my own money started disappearing, it didn't hit me the way it should have. I felt distant, almost like it wasn't happening to me. And that disconnect started showing up everywhere. I was overwhelmed, but I couldn't slow down. I was anxious, constantly thinking about what I should be doing next, but never feeling like I was doing enough. I was depressed in a way that didn't always look obvious, just a constant weight in the background that never really lifted. And physically, it showed. I gained a significant amount of weight during that time, not because I didn't care, but because everything felt off balance. My routines were gone, my structure was gone, and when your internal world feels unstable, it shows up in your external life whether you want it to or not. There wasn't one big breaking point, it was quieter than that. I was looking at my accounts and realizing how much I had drained. It was recognizing that I had pulled $27,000 out of my 401k at 25 years old. Money that, at that time in my life, felt like everything I had built. And it didn't stop there. I had started relying on credit cards just to get by, taking on debt to survive, pulling student loans while trying to rebuild something I couldn't fully see yet. And at some point, I had to face it. I wasn't just losing money, I had lost any sense of what enough actually was. And that's where things started to shift. Not dramatically, not overnight, but in small, intentional decisions. I couldn't spend the same anymore, so I started paying attention. Every dollar had to mean something, not just where it went, but why it was being spent in the first place. I couldn't keep living the same way physically either. The weight I had gained, the way I felt mentally, it all started to catch up to me. So I began taking my health more seriously. I simplified what I ate. Food became basic, clean, and consistent, not because it was a trend, but because it gave me stability. It gave me something I could control when everything else felt uncertain. I stopped trying to maintain a version of my life that didn't exist anymore. I simplified what I wore, mostly black, not as a statement, just one less decision to make, one less thing to think about, one less layer of noise. And over time, that simplicity stayed. From 2010 to now, it never left. But what started as survival slowly became preference. What I didn't realize at the time was that this was minimalism. Not the aesthetic, not the perfectly curated version you see online, but the removal of everything that wasn't necessary just to function. And then realizing that function, that clarity, actually felt better than the excess. Because when you strip everything back, you start to see how much of your life was built on habits you never consciously chose. When you've had to rebuild from that place, you don't chase more the same way. You start questioning everything: how you spend, what you eat, how you work, what you allow into your life. Over time, it stopped feeling like loss and started to feel like clarity. I became more mindful with money, not out of fear, but awareness. More intentional with food, not for restriction, but simplicity. And more refined in how I approached business, marketing, and design. Less noise, more focus, less excess, more precision. And what's interesting is where that eventually led me. not into one path, but into multiple. I built a marketing and branding business. I started designing websites, creating digital and physical products, building systems around clarity instead of volume. I worked with clients at a high level where one relationship alone generated $150,000 in revenue. And I also found myself working within luxury real estate, supporting a top producing agent in a space where more is always the expectation. But this time it felt different. I wasn't chasing more. I understood what enough looked like. I started valuing restraint, clean design, thoughtful decisions, work that actually had intention behind it, not just more output, but better output, not just more noise, but something that actually lands. And that's the part that most people don't see. Minimalism didn't start as a choice. It started as survival, but somewhere along the way, it became the standard. Because once you've experienced what it feels like to lose your sense of enough and then rebuilding it from nothing, you don't go back to chasing more. You move differently.